Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. Says the Gemara. We are a few lines down where it says Elmaleh Rav Acha midifti, leravina. Okay, so this is the third line. Elmaleh Rav Acha midifti leravina. My sfekot. What exactly are the sfekot that the Bright is talking about that they come in to take off maaser? Ilema, if you're going to tell me now safek bechorot, which means we have a safek peter rechem of a holy animal, right? Of an animal which is basically a bema Torah. So yeh kodesh amalachmana. The Torah says, asiri yeh kodesh velo shekvar kadosh. Not that it's already kadosh, right? Which means that, for example, let's say you have this bechor bema Torah, right? Which is already kadosh mileda. Once it's a bechor vadai, which is going to be patur for maaser, so therefore also safek bechor, right, is also going to be patur from maaser. Ela baradar. So that means it cannot be safek bechorot. Because if it's safek bechorot, it's already kadosh. And if it's so then you can't put it back in to take off the maaser. Ela baradar. He comes and he says safek pidyon peter chamor. It has to be a safek to do with pidyon peter chamor. Remember, which means a non-kosher animal, which is a chamor. Any kosher animal that it has a firstborn, it goes to the kohen. But that's be'ema teorah. If it's a kosher animal. It's a non-kosher animal, which is going to be the peter chamor, so therefore it's going to be tifte beseh. Ucht Rav Nachman, like Rav Nachman. Da'am Rav Nachman says Rav Nachman Amar Ravua, Yisrael sheyesh lo asara safek pitre chamor betoch beto. If you have 10 sfekot of pitre chamor inside the house, mafrish alehen asara sein. You're going to redeem them with 10 says. Umeaseran, but then you have to take off the maaser from the says. Vehen shelo. But he doesn't have to give it to the Kohen. Now he comes and he says, okay, so this now, right? Now he has to bring me a proof. Right? Which means that the Kohen now has to bring me a proof that really be'emet that they were his. So one more time, you do have to separate the seh, right? Which is the 10 says. Remember, you have 10, 10 pitre chamor. So you have 10 says for the 10 peter chamor. Every chamor needs a tifte beseh. Okay, so if you have 10, so you have 10 sheep. But now when you have 10 sheep, you have to take off maaser. So you do separate the maaser. But here, since it was a safek to begin with, that the Kohen has to bring a raya in order to come and to take it from me. So says the Gemara, it's okay. So what was halacha to do with the bathhouse? Yeah, what was halacha to do with the bathhouse? So Tashema Dar Rav Chia Baravin, right? Ava Uvda Berav Chasta, there was a case with Rav Chasta. Rav Chasta Berav Huna, in the case of Rav Chasta, went from Rav Huna. Upashta. And he was poshet, mehad amar Rav Nachman, kol mamon she'en yachol lotziyo bedayanin, higdisho eno kadosh. So he comes and he says like this, there's a very interesting klal that Rav Nachman comes and he says, any money, right, which basically you cannot take it out with the dayanin, which means al pi betin, right, which means, right, he cannot come and obligate him to take it out, right, that means to give him the money, higdisho eno kadosh, it's not going to be kadosh. And therefore, in such a case, right, there's not chal be'ekdesh to do with the case of the, how do you call this? The bathhouse. Why? Because if they go to the bedin, does it become, can he take it away from him? If he goes to bedin, can he take it away from him? No. Right, we just said that each one swears, they take half, whatever, but he can't take it away from him. There's a general rule that anything which I cannot take away from you, right, so therefore you cannot make ekdesh on it. Yeah? Right? But if you can take it out in dayanim, right? Imigdisho kadosh, it is going to be holy. Even though, right, you can't take it out from the dayanim. Says Rabbi Yochanan, Gazal velo nityashu abealim. Imagine right now somebody steals, right? And there's no yush, right? Velo nityashu abealim. Shnehem, whether it's the baalim or the gazlan, they cannot make ekdesh. Ze lefi she'ena shelo. This obviously doesn't belong to him. V'zeh lefi she'ena b'rishuto. And this, because it's not his reshut. Remember, in order for you to make ekdesh, it has to be in your reshut. Here it's not your reshut, right? Yeah, it has to be in your property. Yeah. Right now, even though, right, the nigzal can take it away al pi bedin, still he's coming and saying that you can't make it ekdesh because it's on his reshut. So this is soter, that which we just said beforehand, right? That if you could take it out with dayanim, you could make it ekdesh. It's not true. Even if you could take it out, because again, somebody stole from you. So if somebody stole from you, for sure you could take it out from Bedin. And still, even after taking it out from Bedin, right, you still can't come and make it ekdesh. Why? It's on your reshut. So says the Gemara, Mi Savra, did you think b'masuta metaltalin naskinan? That we're talking about something which is like a bathhouse, which is something which is movable? He says b'masuta mekarkaya skinan. We're talking about land. Dechi yachol leotziya b'dayanin, because when you do take it out in Bedin, b'shute kaima, it's going to be in your reshut. Because remember, karka is not going to be nigzal, right? With nigzelet. What does that mean? At the end of the day, you can't steal a piece of land because the piece of land doesn't move. It's there. So therefore, he comes and he says, that's why Rav Huna comes and it says, it's not going to be kadosh because still, right, since he says, since the Baalim could not take it out with Dayanim, so therefore, but if they could have, so therefore they would have been able to come and make it Hegdesh. Okay? So Tani Rav Tachlifa Bar, right, Marava, comes Rav Tachlifa that was in Eretz Israel, Kamed Rabbi Avu, in front of Rabbi Avu. Shnaim adukim betalit. You have two people which are grabbing onto a talit. Ze notel ad makom sheyado magat, veze notel ad makom sheyado magat. So each one says the entire thing is mine, right? So what happens, right? Well, you have two people that are grabbing onto it. So each one is grabbing as much as they can. So you say, okay, the way that you're supposed to do it is whatever they're grabbing. V'ashar and the rest chulkim b'shaveh. They divide it equally. So machvi le Rabbi Avu v'shua. So Rabbi Avu went and he said, right? You have to make a shavua, which means he's giving a hint that each one is grabbing his chelek, right? Whether it's a makom sheyado magat or on the rest, right? Everything has to be done with a shavua. So ela matnitin. So one second, but our Mishnah diktani depalge badad, you split it. Velo katanin zenotel al makom sheyado magat. So what's our Mishnah then? Here we're adding in a new part that we didn't have in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah was each one just comes and takes half. All of a sudden, we're saying, no. It's a very big talit. So whatever I grab on, I grab on. Whatever you grab on, you grab on. The rest of it is half. So let's say I've got longer arms. Yeah? So means I'm taking more. Because ad sheyado magat. Right? That's what we're trying to say.
So you rip it.
Which one?
You rip it.
You don't rip it. We said already the Mishnah that we either split it, right? And if you cannot split it because it gets ruined, so therefore you sell it and you split the money. That's what we said in the Mishnah.
No, but here we're saying you grab something.
Yeah. So why are you talking about ripping?
If you each grab a portion and then you're going to divide what's left. You're talking about the money after you sold it, or you're talking about the cave itself?
It depends. If you could split it, so that you could split it. If you cannot split it, so then you'd sell it and then you take the money. Right? We're not talking about that you come and rip something and then you can't use it, obviously.
But here we're saying you grab something and then you'll share whatever's left.
No, both of them are grabbing. Correct?
We both grab.
Exactly. So each one takes whatever they're able to grab. So if I was able to grab 50 centimeters and you were able to grab 60 because you've got longer arms, so therefore you took 60, I took 50. Whatever's left, whatever it is, we divide.
Or addition. So we ripped it.
But why are you ripping? I'm not understanding why you're ripping. Amar Rav Papa comes and he answers then. The tfise bekarkashta. What does that mean? The case that we're talking about is that both of them are grabbing the chutim, which are coming from the ariga on the end of the talit. And therefore, nobody's actually grabbing, right, a chelek of the talit more than his friends. And therefore, they're going to divide the talit equally. Okay? Amar Rav Masharshia. So now Rav Masharshia comes and he says, Shema mina, we learn from here, Hai sudara, this sudar, right, that you're going to buy with that you can acquire with chalipin. Kevan de tafis bei, shalosh al shalosh, since right now you're going to come and you're going to grab, right, 3 by 3. Karinam bei, so we're going to come and we're going to read on it, Vinatan lere'ehu. What does it mean, Vinatan lere'ehu? Vinatan lere'ehu means that you're giving it to your friend. Okay? Here it says, Kinyan Chalipim, we learn from Megillat root from Vinatan lere'ehu. Shalaf ishnalo Vinatan lere'ehu. Take off your shoe and you're going to give it to your friend. Tichman de pasik dami. Because since the chelek of the sudar that you're grabbing is kilu that it's cut off from the rest of the beged, so therefore you're going to acquire it. So therefore, once you acquire it, you did kinyan chalipin. Okay, and this actually comes out from our Mishnah that just like if you have two people grabbing onto the talit, whatever he has in his hands is his, right? And the sheni is not muhzak. So to do the kinyan sudar, it's considered that kilu, whatever you have in your hands, it's yours, and therefore, even though it's connected to the other part of the talit. So ask the Gemara, what's the difference between this and Rav Chasta. Tamar Rav Chasta, says Rav Chasta, get biada umeshicha biado. Imagine right now the husband wants to play a game. So what does he do? He gives her the get. Now, but the get is tied with a little string. So what happens? And then he wants to bring it back to himself. So it's kilu, like you're giving it, also you pull it back. So he comes and he says, "Im yachol lenatzkov laviu etzlo, ena megureshet." If he could yank with the string and grab the get back, so therefore she's not divorced. Okay? Aval v'imlav, but if he cannot do that, megureshet, she is going to be divorced. So therefore, this is, and what's written by get? V'natan biyada, netina. So therefore, he comes and he says that it's not considered netina, right? If basically you could pull it away. That's what we're trying to say. So for since she cannot acquire the get in his, what? It has to be in her possession. So it's not. So therefore, that's why. That means netina has to be that the other person has it and you cannot grab it away from them. So says the Gemara, it's not true. Hatam over there by a get, kritut baina. You have to give Natan biyada sefer keritut. Yeah? What does that mean? You have to give her a sefer keritut. So he comes and he says, here we do not have sefer keritut. Meaning, when it's written over there that you have to give her a sefer keritut, so therefore there it's talking about that here, it's not keritut, you're still attached to it. So he says, but over here, hacha netina bainan, you have to give it. Vayika, you gave it. You don't need to be cut off from it. You just need to give. You did give. Meaning, if somebody's going to ask, did you give the get to the woman? Yeah, you gave it to her. The problem is that you need a disconnect. You need something which is koret beno levena. You need something which cuts off between him and her. So therefore there, as long as you still have an achiza in it, and you're able to grab it to yourself, you didn't cut yourself off. Okay, you have to make a pasek between you and her, called kritut. Okay? So, but here, it's considered that you gave it. So Amar Rava comes and he says, Ima ita talit muzhevet, which means that it has different types of chutim of zahav. Chulkim, we're going to divide it. So ask the Gemara Pshita, obviously. Meaning, what's the difference? Like, well, now because it's made out of gold, you're going to divide it, and if not, no. Like, what does that mean? And so it's going to lotzlicha de kai dava bemitzeh, that the gold is in the middle of the talit. Right? So therefore he comes and he says, okay, fine. But an Amishita, it's still obvious. If you say we each get half, so what do I care what it is made out of? And what do I care if the gold's in the middle or not? At the end of the day, you're going to divide it into half. And says the Gemara Lotzicha, what are we dealing with? That it's closer to one. So Elmaleh, he could come and say plog hachi, that you cut it in the middle, right? And therefore it comes and he says all the zahav is his. Kamash Balanda Male, that he comes and he says, my chazite palag tachi, right? Plog hachi. Which means like this. I'm going to ask you a question. Exactly. How are you dividing the talit? I've got a talit. Let's pretend the talit is a paper or this. So this is the talit. Okay? The gold is closer to one side. Yeah. That means it's not in the middle. It's closer to one side right here. So now, I could have said, listen, if it's closer to him, he could say, split it here, I get all the gold. This is my portion. Says the Gemara, no. Why? Whoever told you that you split it this way? Maybe you split it this way. Now, if you split it this way, we each get half. You split it this way, yeah, then you want to take the entire thing. But whoever told you, that's what he said. Okay? So, Tana Rabbanan, we're going to try to bring another brighter now. Shnayim adukim b'shtar. Two people are grabbing onto a shtar chov. Hamal ve'omer shelihu. The malve says it's mine. V'nafal mimeni umtzativ. And I lost it and you picked it up. You found it. V'lo ve'omer, the love says, shelchahu. Right? What does that mean, shelchahu? It is yours. Uperativ. Right? But I already paid it back. Yeah? Meaning when it says shelchahu, it means, yeah, it's a good document. It wasn't forged. But I paid it up. Yitkayem ashtar bechotamav. What does that mean? You're going to be mikayem the shtar with his signatures. Divrei Rabbi. These are the words of Rabbi. Rashbag says, yachloku. You're going to divide it. Yeah? So you're going to divide it. It's going to be half-half. Right? The malva is going to take half, and half of it is going to, right, be lost. Okay? So he comes and he says, okay, we're going to see this in Amud Bet, right, a little bit more. So the Gemara says, Nafal liyad dayan. What happens if the dayan found it? A dayan found it. The dayan found the shtar. Lo yotziu olamit. You're never going to take away from it. Rabbi Yossi Omer, hareu becheskato. He says, no, it was never paid back. Right? And therefore you give it back to the malve. You give it back to the lender. Right? Remember, in the olden days, if they have a document, so I owe you money, so here's the document. This document is worth money. Okay? So says the Gemara, Amar Mor, Yitkayem Ashtar Bechotamav, right? You're going to come and you're going to verify the signatures. The Gavle Malve Kule, and then the Malve is going to come, he's going to collect everything. Right? He says, right? That means what is he coming and saying? He's going what? The second you're going to be Mekayem the Shtar, that's it, and he collects everything. Velele Matnitin Shtayim Ochazim, you have Shtayim Ochazim. Meaning, you have this case of Shtayim Ochazim, which is our Mishnah. Which means, since at the end of the day, we don't have somebody arguing on our Mishnah, for sure Rabbi also holds with it. So if so, why all of a sudden now, if you have two people which are grabbing onto the shtar, is it any different than the Mishnah? What was our Mishnah? Two people are holding onto a talit. Here, two people are holding onto the shtar. If you have two people holding onto the shtar, why do we say verify the signatures and let them collect 100%? If they're both, the signatures are correct. It was a good document. Nobody's saying it was forged. The only thing is, if we're both hanging onto it, so do like the Mishnah, split 50-50.
The money that the shtar value.
Yes, right. That's what we're talking about. Split it. No, we're not talking about splitting the shtar. Meaning that we're splitting the value of what's the loan on the shtar. You understand? So split it. So Amar Rav Nachman says Rav Nachman b'mkuyam. If right now, if it's talking about that it was already kuyam the shtar, divrei akol, according to everybody, yachloku. You're right. You divide the money. Ki pligi, when is a machloket be'eno mekuyam. If it's not mekuyam, Rabbi holds modeh b'shtar sheketavo tzarich lekayemo. Meaning Rabbi holds that even if you're going to be modeh in a shtar that you wrote it, the malve still has to be mekayem the shtar. So if he's going to be mekayem the shtar, palig, so then he takes half of it. V'lo mekayem le, and if he's not going to be mekayem le, lo palig, right? He's not going to take half. My tama, what's the reasoning? Chaspa be'almahu, because it's a piece of pottery. So man kamashvi lelehai shtara. Who's the one that's making this into a shtar? The love, hakamar the priya. But 1 second, he just said, right, that it was paid back. Meaning, it's like, a pesha asar or a pesha itir, right? Meaning that, what's going on over here? One more time. You have a document. So, if right now the document was verified, which means that they verified the signatures and everything, so therefore, this is a true, valid, genuine document. So therefore, they're both grabbing onto the document, divide it. But now Rabbi holds, when is the machloket now? The machloket is, what happens if you never verify the document? Maybe the document is false. So therefore, you're right. If you're going to be mekayem, meaning that you're going to verify it, so then you're right, split it into two. But if not, you don't split it at all. He says, why? Because this paper is worthless. If you have a document that maybe it's forged and you don't know if it's verified, it's a worthless piece of paper. It's chaspa be'almahu. So who's the one that's going to make this shtar? He says, the loveh. He says, but 1 second, but he just said that it's paid back. Right? The loveh, the one that made it into the shtar, he just said that he paid it back. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel savar modeh b'shtar shekatavo en tzarich lekayemo, and therefore ve'aflok of the lo mekayem le, even if he did not mekayem it, yachloku, you still come and you're still going to divide it, and that's going to be the machloket then between them. Fine. So what happens to the seif of the Braita? The seif of the Braita was, so again one more time, there's a machloket between them. If right now you have a document, do you have to verify it or not verify it? According to the first shita, right, we had Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Rashbag, and then we had Rabbi. So Rabbi comes and he says you still have to verify it. So if you verify, if it was already verified, you divide it. If you didn't verify it, so then nothing. You don't have to even pay a penny. And according to Rashbag, you don't have to verify it. One of them is now if it fell into the Dayan's hands. So lo yotzi ulamit. We said that you don't take it out at all. Zayin Amubet 7b. Maishna liya Dayan. Why is it now that specifically it had to get to the hands of the Dayan? Why didn't you just say it got to anybody else's hands? Why the hands of the Dayan? Stam, it got into somebody's hands and that's it. Right? But why does it say Dayan? So Amar Rava says, this is what it say. Acher is not the Dayan. Acher is anybody. Shematzah shtar shenafal liyad Dayan. Right? That means basically the al-acher, which is not the malve or the love, that he found right? The shtar that fell from the dayan. Vehechidami, what was the case? Dirkatav behem pek, that it already had the ishur of the bedin. So lo yotziu olamit, you're not going to take it out olamit, right? Until Eliyahu comes, or Edim are going to come and say that they saw the shtar actually fall. That means not that the dayan found the document, right? Because that's what we thought at the beginning. We thought at the beginning the dayan found the good document. So if the dayan finds it, don't take it out at all. It says no, somebody else found it. But when it says that it was in the hands of the dayan, it means that the dayan already came and he verified it. He had an impek. The dayanim, they come and they put their seal. That seal comes and testifies that it was actually 100% kosher. So it says the Gemara not like this.
What is the problem?
Which one?
So why there is a problem?
Because at the end of the day, right?
No,
If
they kosher it.
no, but still, if right now we don't know who did it fall from the malve or the love, so we're in a doubt. So since we're in a doubt,
They said that the witness saw it falling out from the dayan, not from Malve or Love.
which one? Velo mibaye lo katav beimpek. Now we don't even have to say that if it doesn't have an impek that you're not going to give it back. Diikale meimar, because maybe we could say katav lilvov velo lava. Meaning, one second, until we were talking about a case where there was already verified, everything was done kosher. Right, that means we don't have to verify the signatures. We don't have to make sure it's genuine, 100% kasher. But obviously, if it didn't even have the impek, for sure you don't give it back to the lender. Why don't you give it back to the malve? Because maybe they wrote it and he didn't actually lend it. Maybe they wrote it and they didn't lend it. Ela afilu katav behempek te mekuyam. But even if it's going to be an impek that it was mekuyam, lo yachzir. Don't give it back. Techayshina lepirion, because we're going to suspect. The what? The real bemet, he's going to pay for it. Rabbi Yossi comes and he says, Harehu becheskato, right? It is in its chazaka, velo chashinan lepiraon, and we're not going to suspect for paying it back. Okay? Fine. So says the Gemara, velo chaisha biyoseh lepiraon. Are you going to tell me that Rabbi Yosef does not suspect that it's going to be paid back? Which means, right, at the end of the day, I'm going to say that no, that you should give it back. Why? Because we're not going to suspect that he paid it up. Meaning, as long as it's a good document, it probably fell from the malveh, and therefore he can't just say, I paid it back. You don't pay back. Well, it doesn't work like that. Okay, that's a shita of Rabbi Yosef. So says the Gemara, what Rabbi Yosef never holds that maybe the guy paid it back. Think about it. Like it's a very powerful statement to say. Any document that you say, give it back to the lender. Why? He didn't pay it back. You always say that. Fatanya, we learned in a Braita, Matzah shtar ketubah bashuk. If you found a ketubah in the marketplace, Bizman shabal modeh, if the husband came and he admits that he never paid it back, he never paid the ketubah, yachzir la'isha, give it back to the woman. If he made a bal modeh, but if he does not modeh, and he says no, that I paid it back, lo yachzir, lo lazev, you don't give it back to anybody. But rather what do you do? Right? It's the same thing. Right?
Rabbi Yosef, I think, coming from
Rabbi Yosef comes and he says, Odata chabala, if she's still married, yachzir la'isha, give it back to the woman. But for sure, he did not pay it back. Right? Why? Because a person will never pay a ketubah if he didn't get divorced. Nitar melau nitgarsha, but if she got divorced or widowed, lo yachzir, don't give it back. Lo lezeh velo lezeh. Right? Why? Because we suspect it was actually paid back. So you see from here that we do find a concept that the same svara. One second. If you're going to tell me that the husband paid back the ketubah, so why isn't it torn? Why isn't it torn? Right? So that no, but this is a question against Rabbi Yosef now.
Correct, but this is
one more time. Right? But that's what we're trying to say. We're trying to say, according to you, Rabbi Yosef, you want to tell me that if it's not torn, that's a raya, that it's still a good
document, valid.
No, but the document for sure was always a good document. It means
valid.
that it was never paid. It was never paid back, right?
Yes.
It was never paid back.
Still
He
valid.
says, but one second, right? What does it help? At the end of the day, the ketubah is not any different. So answers the Gemara, you're right. Eipuch. We have to switch the shitot v'chachamim and Rabbi Yosef in the first braita. Nafal liyad dayan. If the document fell, which means again, liyad dayan does not mean in the hands of the dayan. It just means that it was already mikuyam, that it was already verified. So lo yotzi olamit, you never take it out. These are the words of Rabbi Yosef. Why? Because I'm going to suspect, right, that it was. I'm going to suspect that it was going to be what? It was going to be. How do you call this? It was going to be paid back. The Chachamim are the ones that are going to say that we're not going to suspect right, that it was paid back, and you give it back. So says the Gemara, one second. You just switched it? So he says, Yihachi, if so, Kasha Drabanan. Now you have a Stiran Drabanan. Why? The first Braita said that the shtar is in a chazakah, and we're not going to suspect for paying back. The second Braita is saying that you don't give back the ketubah, because we do suspect for getting paid back. So what's going on? So answers the Gemara, no. He says like this. He says, shtar ketubah kula Rabbi Yosef. The shtar ketubah, the entire thing is taught like Rabbi Yosef. The chasure mechsera v'achiktani. And we're lacking. And this is the way that we're supposed to do it. En ha-ba'al modeh, right? The Baal is not going to be modeh, right? Lo yachzir, lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. We said if the husband is not modeh, which means that he's still obligated to pay the ketubah, but he says, I paid it back. You're right, you don't give it back to anybody. But one of these words, aval odat ha-chabala yachzir la'isha, שרבי יוסי אומר, הודת החבלה יחזיר לאישה, ניתן לה נדקר שלא יחזיר, right, לא לזה ולא לזה. So therefore what happens is that since it's not mentioned the words of Rabbanan at all in the Braita, it's not a stira. Meaning this entire Braita was actually Rabbi Yosef. One more time, right? What we asked a contradiction between the rabbis between ketubah and a regular case of the hempek when it comes out from the hands of the bedin, which means that bedin already verified it, right? So here one more time, how do you read the Braita? The Braita says, if the Baal is not admitting to it, you never give it back. But when are these words? Only if it's nitar minar nidgasha. But if Be'emet she's still married, for sure you give it back. Why do you give it back to the woman? Because it's not normal for a person to ever pay the ketubah right before actually coming and getting divorced. Okay? So therefore he comes and he says, so therefore, right, lo yachzir, lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. Rav Papa Amar, so Rav Papa comes and he says, leolam lo tepuch. Really, be'emet, we're not going to change it. Yeah? Lo tepuch. Right? What does that mean, leolam lo tepuch? He comes and he says, you don't have to change the deot. Rabbi Yosef ledivrehem de Rabbanan kama lehu. Rabbi Yosef is going in the shita of the chachamim. And he says like this, ledidi, according to me, afilu nitar mela nidgar shanami lo chashirim piron. We never suspect getting paid back. Right? Why? Because he's always very, very careful to come and to tear it right away. Such shitat Rabbi Yosef always. Since he's careful to tear it right away, you found it, give it back. The woman who gained, even if she was nitar mela nidgarsha. Ledidchu, but according to your shita, odu limihat, you at the end of the day still have to be modeh. Be'odat ha'chabala v'yachzir leisha telaba piraoni. That for sure you should give it back to the woman. Ve'amru le Rabbanan, so the rabbi said, emur tzrareat basa. Maybe the husband went and he gave money, right, ma'ot tzrurot, right, keneged the ketubah, when it was done or afterwards, and therefore in order that if she's going to become widowed or whatever it is, the Yerushim don't have to come. She comes and she takes this money. Meaning they set aside money from the beginning for ketubah. That's so the pshat of tzrare at pesa. Okay? So therefore he comes and he says, so therefore according to this, it comes out that he's going in their shita. Okay? Because again, this is what we're talking about. Okay? Now, he comes and he says now like this. Ravina comes and he says like this. Leolam epuch kamaita. Really, be'emet, we're going to switch the beginning part. What does that mean, the beginning part? Which means we're going to switch the chachamim and Rabbi Yosef in the first braita. So it comes out the chachamim do not suspect that the guy is going to pay back. And therefore, there's no stira in their words. V'tamad Rabbanan achas. So what is the reasoning the Rabbanan here in the ketubah? Mishum dechayshin al leshte ketubot. We're going to suspect that maybe the husband went and he wrote another ketubah after the first ketubah was lost. Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef says, shte ketubot lo chayshi. We're not going to suspect for two ketubot, which means like this. The rabbis come and they say that here be'emet, why do we say that you don't give it back? Right? Not because we're going to suspect that you paid it back. Because maybe she's going to have two ketubot. She comes, I can't find the ketubah. What do you have to write? Ketubah de yikasa. All of a sudden she comes and she has another ketubah. So he comes and he says, so therefore when it says in a bal modeh, it doesn't mean in a bal modeh that he says paratila. But he says, right, katavtila ketubah shniya. So if you're now going to give her this ketubah rishonah, she's now going to come and she's going to collect from the Yorshim, right, with shtar echad, and then she's going to come and take out from another bedin and collect with another one. Meaning, if she's got two ketubot in her hand, it's like you've got two debt documents that you want to collect. So therefore, we don't want that. But the Rabbi says we don't suspect for such a thing of two debt documents. Okay? Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, the machloket, right, when we say yachloku, right, and we're saying now it's mashma that you're dividing it equally, b'sheshnei madukim betofes, both of them are grabbing on the document. Ushnehem, right, betoref, or both of them are in the toref. Aval bat echad aduk betofes echad betoref. If one of them is grabbing the tofes, one of them is the toref, right? Zenotel tofes, you give each one, you split it up. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, no, leolam chulkim. You always do it b'shaveh. Just to explain what is a tofes and the toref. Tofes, the toref, is the main part of the document. The tofes is the secondary part of the document. So he comes and he says, so if that's the case, so therefore there's a machloket. Do we say each one just gets what they grab onto, or do we say that we divide it equally? Okay? The Gemara is going to say, "Vafilu echad aduk betofes ve'echad aduk betoref." Even if one is completely grabbing the tofes, one of the toref, still Rabbi Yochanan says yes be'emtza. Vatanya, we said zenotel hamakom shedomagad. We said the Mishnah. The Mishnah says each one takes whatever their hand has. Right? Now you're right, when we're talking about the other way around, right, which is basically I didn't grab the gold. Because when I was grabbing, I wasn't able to get to the gold. But the gold was closer to me. So when we just said that the emtza, because we said that each one grabs whatever they grabbed, right, whatever their arm was able to grab, and the shar is be'emtza. So if the shar is be'emtza, but it was closer to me, so I should get that gold. It says, no, whoever told you going down, let's split it this way. Split it this way. Says the Gemara, 1 second. There it said, Zenotel makom shedomag, Zenotel makom shedomagat. Answers the Gemara, Dekai lotzricha dekai toref bemitze. The toref is in the middle, and therefore nobody's grabbing on. So this was the case that I did before, that I grabbed the top part, he's going to grab the bottom part, and the toref is here. Once the toref is in the middle, so therefore, that's why cholkim b'shaveh, right? That's why cholkim b'shaveh. So says the Gemara, ihachiv so, ma'ile memra. So then what's the chidush? Obviously, so says the Gemara, lotzicha, what are we dealing with? De mekarev legabechad, that it's still closer to one. That's exactly what we're talking. It's still closer to one. So therefore, ma'u de teima, I would have thought to say, Elmaleh, he could tell him, plog hachi, divide the shtar in this way. Kamash malanda Elmaleh, he could tell him the same thing. Ma'ai chazi de plog hachi, plog hachi. Do the other way around. Right? So basically what he's trying to say is, just like the exact same thing of the talit, it's mamash deja vu. The exact same thing. That's exactly what we're doing. Right? Copy paste, as they said. Before it was a talit with a zahav, and now we're talking about a shtar with a toref and a tofes. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara now, Elmaleh ravacha midifti l'Ravina. Says ravacha midifti to Ravina, l'Rabbi Elazar d'Amar, according to Rabbi Elazar, that he says, zenotel tofes v'zenotel toref, that one person's taking the tofes and one person's taking the toref. Right? Lama lei. He says, why exactly, right? The kavanah is that we cut up the shtar in two, no? And each one gets half, no? Now he says, what help does it have if you're only going to get the tofes? Yeah? What help does it have? Think about it. I have a document that it's written over there that John Doe owes me $100. Now it doesn't say my name, because if it said my name, it's obviously, what are we arguing about? You understand? But it just says, John Doe owes you $100, I borrowed from you $100, this is my Teudat Zehut, date, signed. Yeah? And it said there maybe also payment plans and other things which could be the tofes. You understand? How much are we going to pay, and then what currency, and But the main part was, now, 1 second, if I'm only going to grab the tofes and you're going to grab the toref, so what am I able to do with the tofes? There's nothing there. It says what? You have to cover it? You have to cover a barrel? You're going to use it as a cork?
As a rug.
Right? So what are you doing? So Elmaleh comes and he says, no, ledmei, to the shovi. What does that mean? The one that's grabbing the toref is going to get the money, right, of the toref towards the tofes, which is going to be worth obviously less. Okay? That means basically what's going to happen is that when you have a document and it's not going to have a tarikh, it's worth much less than if it does have, let's say, the date, right, which is the tarikh, right? So he says, Damarachi, but he could say, Shtara date bezman kama shaveh. How much is worth a document that has a date? Udele bezman kama shaveh. And how much is it a document without a date? It says b'shtar adid bezman gave mishabde. Whenever it has a time, you could be goveh from nechasim meshubadim. It has a lien. Right? Va'idach lo gave mishabde. The other one you cannot collect from a lien. So yayiv leheach de benu bene. So therefore he has to give him, right, the difference in it. Which means the question was, I don't understand you. According to Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yochanan, one second. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it always makes sense. Why? You divide it equally. Gamarnu. According to Rabbi Yochanan, very, very easy. According to the other Shita, I'm going to take the tofes. You took the toref. Chazak Baruch. What do I get from the tofes? I get nothing. Can I collect with it? No. It's not written the main part of the debt in the document. Right? The main part of the debt, the other one. So, ma'u chayavli. Klum. So, mani marviach. Stam nasim et ze po. Chazak Baruch. I want to cover my coffee. I don't want bugs flying inside. That's why I'm taking it. Says Gemara, no. There's a huge difference between a document that has a date and doesn't have a date. Remember, the tarikh was the tofes, right? It's not the main part of the shtar. Even without the tarikh, you could still collect, but you cannot collect from nechasim meshubadim. Which means, I come and I have a document, you owe me $1,000. I want to come, you're not paying me. I want to collect from nechasim meshubadim. What happens? I come and I want to collect with a lien. When was the loan? The loan was, I don't know what, the Kavdale Adar. No, today's Kafeh. Kafeh Adar, Aleph. Says, but where's it written? It's written in the Tofes. You don't have the Tofes. The Tofes doesn't belong to you. So now, the value of the document goes down. The value of the document goes down because now, I don't have a lien anymore.
It goes down to zero.
No, it doesn't go down to zero. No, why down to zero? You owe me $1,000. You owe me $1,000. It doesn't go down. But my collection power went down tremendously. Before, I could have collected from any of your properties. I come with a document, has a date. Even if you sold to Michelle 2 days later, I could come and collect it. Right? You sold it, I could come and collect it. You come from anywhere, I could come and collect it. But now it goes down. You understand? So it does go down. Right? It doesn't go down to zero. Why does it go down to zero? I don't understand. I have a document. What? I have a document.
The document has a power or it doesn't.
No, I don't understand. You can't collect from nechasim meshubadim. But if it's not nechasim meshubadim, you could still collect. You just can't collect mishabde. Mishabde means that it's not. There's no lien on it. Right? It's like a bank. Says the Gemara. Okay, one second. Says the Gemara, right? So therefore, since it goes down in value, that's what he has to give him, right? That value. So says the Gemara, v'yachloku nami de'amran. Even when we said yachloku, we're talking about the demeh. We're talking about the money, correct? Because when we just said the yachloku, it means that you're dividing the exact amount, right? We're talking about the shovi of the shtar, right? We're not talking about the chov. Dilo temach was if you're going to tell me that shnaim ochazim betalit, when you have two people that are grabbing onto the talit, hachanami de palge. If you're going to tell me now that you're going to divide the talit mamash, hafsedeh, they destroy the talit, right? When you're going to come, that you're destroying the talit. So answers the Gemara, halakashi. It's not a question. Dechazia lektanim. You could still cut the talit in half, and they could still use it now for 2 children, and therefore you're not really destroying the talit, because at the end of the day, since you could still use it for children, so therefore obviously there's still going to be a usage, right, for this.